Most devs hear about passive income and end up being disappointed when reality hits. I've tried every single shortcut and the results were mixed until I found out what actually works. So I'm going to show you the real paths as well as the biggest mistakes to avoid when it comes to developing passive income as a developer. Let's get straight into it. So first and foremost, if you don't know who I am, a little about myself so you understand who the heck I am and why you should even listen to me. So I wrote my first line of code back in 2016. That's me on my robotics team. From then on, I went to UCLA to study the human consciousness as part of a summer club, you can say. And after that, I went to NASA as a computer engineering intern. After that, I went into the private sector as a software engineering consultant. I climbed all the way from junior software engineer to a manager in 3 years, one of the fastest promotion cycles ever seen, taking my essential income from about $120,000 to $250,000 a year. After that, I quit to found my own AI consulting firm back when ChatGPT came out in November 30th, 2022, right on the day of my birthday. I kind of took that as a sign to, go all in into the AI space, set up my consulting firm, which is what we have right here, AB Analytics. And just in the month of October, at least thus far, we have done close to $600,000 in revenue. Now, I do not take this much home. Let me clarify this. This is revenue, not profit. And now what I do is I have Code to CEO as well and a few other ventures. If you want to know more about that, just go to about.code2ceo.com, code2ceo.com to learn more. Without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So when it comes to passive income as a developer, most people think that they're just going to create a SaaS, right, one time, and it's going to print them money. You see these Twitter screenshots. I've mainly seen this on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it, where these software engineers, or I think they're called indie developers primarily, they have this vision of, okay, I'm going to create a software, I'm going to make a post about it, and all of a sudden I'm just going to have users come in, flood my software, and I'm going to make $10,000 a month, right? $20,000 a month, $50,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue. And since it's a SaaS, my margins are going to be 95% or higher, and I'm going to be living the dream. Now, am I saying this is impossible? No, it is not. There are people that are doing this. However, we always need to take a look at probabilities as opposed to possibilities, okay? Is it probable for you to get into a software, start something from scratch, and start earning passive income as a developer? No, because first, let me define what passive income really is. Passive income is a term that has come way too far without any proper grounding or explanation, especially in the software space. I mean, you've seen all the videos, I don't have to explain it to myself. Everybody and their mother is talking about starting a SaaS mobile application. Now they're talking about those WAP apps, right? The WAP.com thing. Everybody's talking about this thing, oh, just create it. All you have to do is just, make a good app people want, and then they just come flooding in, and you don't have to do anything. Just sit there and money will come in. This is the furthest thing from the truth, because frankly, there is no such thing as truly passive income. The closest you can get to passive income is, let's say, having money in a savings account or in S&P 500, and you either getting dividends off that money or you just simply being in a savings account and you accruing interest on that, right, and getting that back. That is really as passive as you can get, but even for that, there are still occasional steps you have to take every now and then to make sure that it's properly maintained. If you're not doing it, somebody else has to do it, okay? So there's nothing truly passive. There's just less active income. So instead of calling it passive income, let's refer to it as active income. And instead of saying, I don't do any work, it's more about, are you more active or less active in terms of your income? So more active would be me working hour to hour to make my money, and less active would be, let's say, somebody else running the company while I'm behind the scenes getting that money. But nevertheless, I always have to do some level of work to get that. Same thing with the software. Many people think, oh, if I just have a really good software, people are just going to come, buy it, and that's going to be it. No, but you're going to need a support team. You're going to make sure that your software is constantly up. You're going to make sure that, your payment processor actually goes through. You don't get any chargebacks. If you do get chargebacks, you have to talk to them. All these back and forth. So it's nothing is really ever passive. Even real estate, where people think, oh, you buy a house, let it thing, you're going to need property managers and all these things. So forget about the notion of passive income. It doesn't really exist. It's only about active income. is your income more active or less active? That's how you can determine it. Now, a SaaS is an example of something that's less active in terms of an income because you don't have to go and do hourly work. You can create it once, it can be up and people can purchase. So how do you as a software engineer get to this so-called low active income, right? Because right now, let's say if I want to use my firm as an example, most people might think this is passive income, but it's really not. I choose the amount of hours I work on a day-to-day basis. Now, if I don't care about it growing, I just want to maintain it, I can probably get away with, let's say, 1 or 2 hours a day. However, nowadays I spend about 4 hours on it minimum every single day because I'm actually thinking of growing it. If I step away, maybe I can afford to step away for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, hell, maybe even a month. But after a month, since I am essentially one of the core founding members of the company, I know everything inside out. If I step away for too long, it will crumble. Because at the end of the day, you are the foundation for your firm, right? There's a very good saying, it's people don't buy from companies, they buy from people. And this is exactly why, right? The company is nothing without its people. Same thing, a king is nothing without his people. Same exact situation applies here. So get this kind of passive income just completely out of your mind as a software engineer. Even if you're going to have a SaaS, right, you're going to need to have maintenance on that software. And you're going to need to have customer support on that software. You're going to need to have a lot of other things to be able to maintain it. So let's talk about at least how to achieve low active income. How do you as a software engineer achieve low active income? Because most of you right now, if you're watching this, you're probably in a 9-to-5 environment making relatively good money. You are in what is called a medium to high active income. Now, software engineering isn't the most physically demanding job there is. It is quite mentally demanding, but it's not physically demanding. You're just in front of your computer for most of the day. So I would classify it as somewhere alongside of medium active income. I wouldn't say high. High would be something like construction work or something like that, right? So you're currently at a medium and you're trying to get to a low. Generally speaking, it does not make too much logical sense where you can work less but earn more money, right? Fundamentally, it doesn't make sense. And the reason fundamentally it doesn't make sense is because we look at this very linearly. We assume this is on the same plane, right, as whatever it is we're comparing it to. So if we're doing task A in this thing, right, obviously if we do more of task A, then we can earn more money. So when we say work less and earn more, we don't necessarily mean on the same plane, right? Now this plane in our world is referred to as leverage. Okay, this is most commonly referred to as leverage. This is why you can work even 80 hours a week and somebody working 1 hour a week can still technically make more money than you because their 1 hour is leveraged a lot more than your 80 hours that you're working. Their 1 hour could be equivalent to, let's say, your 8,000 hours, right? It's all about leverage. So the entire sort of mindset shift you need to have is forget about passive income, understand that it's really low active income, so less active of an income. And the way to get to less active, since you're going to be doing quote unquote less work for a bigger result, a bigger reward, it needs to be more leveraged by nature, right? And that's a better way to think of it as opposed to I don't do anything, I sit back and I collect my money. Now, what are the ways that you can actually get there and what do you have to watch out for? So fundamentally, when I started the firm, when I started a company, one of the biggest and most important lessons that I understood when it comes to leverage, especially as a software engineer, is that most people are not like me. So this might be a little bit of a weird sentence. You might be like, okay, what is he talking about? When I was a software engineer, I still consider myself a software engineer, but more of a founder. I love technology, right? I loved working with computers. I was very adept at using it. I knew all the features on my smartphone, all these different things. So most of the time when I go about the world, I just had the same exact assumptions. How I viewed the world, the lens with which I viewed the world, I assumed everybody did it the same exact way. But I found out very quickly that people do not even have the most elementary knowledge of technology in certain cases. At least what I deem to be elementary. For example, somebody not knowing how to use YouTube on their phone or use email on their phone or not knowing how to call somebody on a smartphone, for me is extremely elementary knowledge. And yet, a very big population of individuals, especially those who are quite elderly, and let's say might come from not so advanced countries, will face that problem. Now, I'm not saying this to bash on them. I'm just saying this was the reality that I was living in. I understood for the first time, because I was out of the tech bubble, I was outside of the software engineering bubble, and I had to go and pitch actual business owners and pitch different services as well. I understood that most people are not as technologically adept as, let's say, other software engineers. So when you're in this software engineering bubble, it's sort of a bad thing because you just assume everybody around you is competent, technically speaking. Most of you have coders as friends as well. Most of you spend most of your day coding. You're maybe on YouTube, you're doing some savvy stuff. So it's a little mind-boggling for you to meet somebody who can't even use a smartphone properly, right? And yet, I had to see those people most every single day. And it wasn't like they were dumb. They weren't, because they were making way more money than me. They were having way more impact on the world around them. And yet, what I deemed to be elementary, they were not able to do. So that was the first thing that clicked for me. It was that most people are not like me, right? They are not able to do things that I deem as elementary. And that's when I unlocked my first sort of piece of leverage, which was connecting the technical to the non-technical. In my opinion, this is the closest you can get to low active income. Okay, so a SaaS at its nature is this exact leverage, just simplified. So when many people take a look at a SaaS, let's take a look at an example of a good software that's making a lot of money, right? Let's say, well, I don't want to use Amazon or anything of that sort because it's more than a software. Let's use Facebook, for example. Facebook is a prime example of a software. I mean, they have a lot of maintenance and active things going on, but Facebook makes a lot of money, significant amount of money, especially from the advertisements, right? The big brands that come to advertise on it spend a lot of marketing spend on that. All Facebook really did is connect the technical to the non-technical, meaning I can be a non-technical business. I can sell lawnmower services to my local area through Facebook, through technology. I can hire an agency that does Facebook ads. I can pay them money every single month. They can run ads for me and I can get clients that way. So all Facebook did was create an arbitrage of technical and non-technical solutions together, right? That is all it did. Now, of course, there's an arbitrage of also people connected together, but majority of Facebook's revenue comes from advertising spend on it, right? Essentially allowing businesses to get as many eyeballs as possible, depending on how much money they spend. That is your leverage. So for you to make as much money as possible, this earn more, right? For you to up this while also working less, you have to select a low active income vehicle. In this specific case, my opinion and what I've experienced is connecting the technical to the non-technical. What does that mean specifically? All this really means is just like how I realized most people are not like me, they lack the elementary knowledge in various certain tech, right? You apply that same exact mindset to see how you can help them get to the next level. I literally met a founder who was doing about 8 million every 2 weeks in revenue, and he was not aware of cold emails. Not just like sending out cold emails, he was not aware of the technology and the tech stack behind cold emails. He didn't know that there's tools like Apollo where you can go and you have a lead database. He didn't know there's email tools that, like Instantly or Smart Leads where you can set up multiple, inboxes and then send out emails from those. He was not aware of those things. And it was mind-boggling because most individuals, at least most of you watching this video, even you who might not have a business right now, might have some knowledge of that. But that individual did not. And yet he was making, almost $20 million a month in revenue. So it goes to show that there are certain gaps where if you can introduce the technical to the non-technical, they can have, upwards of, I don't even know how much leverage to put here, because it can go a severe amount, right? So your role as a software engineer is as follows. You identify where these gaps are, right? So gaps in the market. So what you do is connect the gap, the market, right? The non-technical to the technical and vice versa. Now, how do you identify this? Well, you have to look at the non-technical space. Most software engineers, what they try to do is they go on Y Combinator, right? And they try to analyze the companies there. But most of them are pretty much copies of one another. And most of them are tackling more modern technological problems. Very rarely you'll see something in healthcare. I mean, you will see them, I'm not saying there aren't, but very rarely you'll see something in healthcare or something in, let's say, blue collar work, something logistics, manufacturing, things like that. You don't see that too often. So your role is to look at non-technical spaces and identify gaps where you can introduce technology. When I say technology, I don't even mean AI. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about here. Sure, you can get to that point, but I mean way before AI. You have plenty of other software that you can reference. I am telling you, especially for those of you in the United States, spend a little bit of time, join the Chamber of Commerce, talk with local business owners, and drop all your assumptions about how people are running their businesses and what tech they're using. Because I guarantee you, you as a software engineer, you are severely overestimating people's knowledge of technology. Guaranteed. So unless you see it in person, you won't quite really understand what I'm talking about. Most people are severely overestimating how much technical knowledge non-technical people have. And it's your job to come in and sort of help fulfill that gap and mend that gap. When I started my firm, I didn't quite understand this. I had to go through a significant amount of change, and I just had to take a look at reality for what it was, just raw reality, and understand that, wow, okay, there's a significant portion of the population that is not technically adept. Does not mean it's a bad thing, because they are still very successful and they're still able to pull off a lot of different things. I have seen, for example, salespeople who don't even know how to use a phone properly or don't even know how to use their email properly, making upwards of $400,000, $500,000 a year just from, let's say, selling solar, right? All these things. So there's a big portion of the population who is making a killing that does not know how to use technology. There's also a big portion of the population who is making a killing that also knows how to use technology. The goal is to connect both of them. And with the advent of AI, this is going to be extremely important, right? With all businesses adopting AI. But even until AI, there are so many other solutions that you can integrate. AI is just icing on top. There's so many other solutions you can integrate that will help you with your venture. So if you want to get as close to this low active income as possible, that is your grounds to be hunting, connecting the technical to the non-technical. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good one.